Are you recording?
Am I? Probably.
ADHD is one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders of childhood. It is usually first diagnosed in childhood and often lasts into adulthood. Children with ADHD may have trouble paying attention, controlling impulsive behaviors, or be overly active. It is normal for children to have trouble focusing and behaving at one time or another. However, children with ADHD do not just grow out of these behaviors. The symptoms continue, can be severe, and can cause difficulty at school, at home, or with friends. A child with ADHD might daydream a lot, forget or lose things often, squirm or fidget, talk too much, make careless mistakes or take unnecessary risks, have a hard time resisting temptation, have trouble taking turns, and have difficulty getting along with others.
Well, you can tell the president that I don't want any. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the country and around the world. This is the Life Midwest podcast. Join a washed-up musician, a communications major, and an Army veteran, all originally from the Midwest, as we talk about life's endeavors that are both current and events. Here to carry out that show, we got my future best man, Thai correspondent Wes Shirley at the booth, everybody. Cool. Coming through crystal clear is the laugh of Seattle's best, and nobody's got the charming, infectious laugh that Lenny Wells does.
I don't know if that's entirely true. I'm sure somebody else has a better laugh than me.
Take the fucking compliment.
I'm trying
Folks,
to be
welcome
humble.
to episode 101. We're gonna be it's funny, guys. I was almost gonna do something about like, oh, welcome to episode 1, because we spent so much of the last episode talking about how we want people to be able to listen to this episode and feel caught up on the first 99 without having to go back and listen to them again. But it's funny because what I wanted to talk about this week is kind of something near and dear to my heart. And I know kind of near and dear to the hearts of Lenny and Wes as well. And if you weren't already aware, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I don't know about if it is in Thailand, but here in the United States, it's 1% less of a stigma here in the United States during the month of May.
I think Wes is going to enlighten us to the fact that there is no such thing as mental health awareness in Thailand later on in today's episode.
I just wanted to comment on how you can stigma in your mouth. Sorry. I'll behave for the rest of the episode, I promise.
Here I am going to bat for all humankind, and some people on this show they just want to talking about sticking my dick. Yeah, okay, the comedic relief. Not going to be a heavy episode today by any means. It's just more of a conversation. I want to, with it being Mental Health Awareness Month and just, talking about the resources that we have available here in the country and through a lot of progressive employers such as, Best Buy, Apple. I don't know why those are the only two that I could think of, but there you go. I wanted to start with like this really almost like innocently small thought came to me today, and I want to see how you guys react to this. But I wrote it down as soon as I thought of it. We teach kids when they're little that it's okay to ask for help. So why is mental health different? Right? You picture the kid or the toddler who like can't reach for something on the counter, and you're like, little Bobby, it's okay to ask for help. I'll get it for you. You just gotta ask. But we grow up and we get to these mental health stages of our lives where maybe we have a struggle with mental health. Maybe it's more of a permanent thing. Maybe it's more of a just something that we go through as teens and adolescents with chemical imbalances. We ask for help, and then we get told, insert blank here, that we'll get into today. What do you guys think of that?
Wes?
What do I think? Well, yeah, we definitely tell kids, you know, we're nurturing them to like rely on other people, and once you're an adult, you don't. I guess you're not supposed to rely on other people, and I think that's a bit absurd because as long as it's not related to mental health, we do tell adults, oh, why didn't you ask for help? You can't do this all alone. You're gonna fail. You're gonna burn yourself out. But once mental health comes around, and because there is a stigma, it's I don't want other people. I don't want to burden other people with my problems. I don't need help, and I don't know what causes that, but I agree totally that that's something that happens.
Do you feel that way now, like as an adult, Wes? Like you don't want to be a burden to other people?
I definitely feel like there's an outlet for mental health, and maybe it's not always your friends. I think I've used friends in a way, and they've used me as well in a way that we can express ourselves and hopefully foster our mental health in some type of positive way. But I do feel like in my heart, like I don't want to burden people with my problems, especially depending on how heavy they are. The more heavy they are, the less I want to talk with a friend about them. Maybe in passing, but not like a shoulder to cry on type deal. I really don't want to inconvenience them, or I don't want to bring them down, especially when times are hard. Like throughout all of COVID, everyone was feeling some type of way, some type of negative way due to the situation. And like if there was a bright spot in their day, I didn't want to be the person that showed up and be like, "Hey man, I'm just having a hard time. Let me ruin your day a little bit." So that's I guess where I am. I don't know. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's how things should be. That's just how I feel.
No, I mean you bring up a good point though. I mean anxiety lies to you, right? So, if you have these thoughts or this these reservations of talking to other people, no, I definitely can see how that makes sense. Where Lenny, where do you think the hush culture for mental health comes from?
I think that's conditioning. I would say it's generational conditioning. That wasn't something, mental health for like a long time in, I would say most cultures, but I would say like, American and European cultures, for example, because that's what I know most about, that it wasn't something that you ever talked about. It was always something to be shameful of. And if other people knew, then you were like marked as a pariah in your community. Um, and, you could, it just like negatively impacted your entire life, whether it be, your prospects for marriage, the way it impacted, your family, if you were in that position already where you did have, a wife and kids or husband and kids, however, it went. And so, especially in a time where people were much less connected. And I think that conditioning has been passed down generation to generation up, even through to today. There's a lot of places where, people still feel that way, where you just don't talk about it. I think that at least in the US, I don't want to speak of anywhere else because I don't have that experience, but it's getting better, I think, with, our generation, millennials and certainly Gen Z. Um, it's becoming a much more talked about thing. So, but yeah, I think it ultimately just stems from a source of generational shame and generational conditioning to not talk about it.
Yeah, it makes me think of the people who are twice our age, and I know we always, I don't want to generalize, but me specifically, I'm always like, oh, boomers, lol. But if you think about it, and I've quoted this on the show before. Back in my day, we didn't have autism, but it's like, no, you did. It's just people went through life being undiagnosed and had to mask and learn how to live with it. And it's like just because they had to learn how to live with it and if they had this disability, and you can insert any disability here, right? It doesn't have to be, autism, it could be anything. But it's just like why do just because somebody else had to go through and stuff for that, like why can't we better ourselves, right? Like why do we have to have this mindset of like, well, we've always done it this way and people have dealt with it just fine. Um what's wrong with breaking down the barrier and saying no, like we can have this conversation. There's medications for treatment. There's therapy for treatment. There's a lot that can go into this. Um, Why does it have to be? And maybe I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, especially with you too. But it's like, why does it have to be the way that it's always been?
I don't think that it does have to be that way. And cliches of like, okay, boomer aside, like you're not wrong. Like I know people who are in their like 40s and 50s who are, solid Gen X that say this shit like that too. So it's not like just the boomers, right? But it is like an old fashioned, old school way of thinking about it, and it's one that I think is steadily going away. It's not going to be an overnight change. I think it's just eventually the people that way are going to cease to be here. And I don't mean to be like grim about it, but it's just one of those things that I think is going to be that pervasive thought will change with as generations move forward. And I don't want to like dominate the conversation, but I just, I even have an example about it because I'm a dad and I have a, 15-year-old that lives in my house, and being a teenager is hard. We all remember being a teenager and how hard it was. And it's not that it's gotten easier to be a teenager, because it certainly hasn't, especially I could go on a rant about like technology and social media and how that like affects people's mental health, but I won't do that right now here. But it's easier for me and Brittany to see those signs, those like warning signs that something's not right, and try and help. For anybody that's listening to this that is either a young teenager with millennial parents, or is a parent that's our age or however old you are, you're not going to be perfect. Your parents aren't going to be perfect, but assuming they're not abusive, they want you to be happy and healthy, and they're going to try and help. They're not going to get it right, but it's a two-way street. So anyways, before I keep going on, I'll slow down.
I think you bring up a good point though, Lenny. Like if you think about it, like as a parent, or if you're a teen or young adolescent listening to this, there's a lot of avenues that you can take with this. And I think as teens, we just want our parents to understand without having to communicate, right? It's like, you don't understand. Why don't you just understand? Try to open a dialogue with your parents. Like Lenny said, short of being abusive, they want you to be happy and healthy. Try to say, try to open up that dialogue and say, hey, like, this is how I'm feeling. And if you don't have that relationship with your parents, it's never too late to start building on that. I think for a lot of us, it comes later in life when we're like through these struggles, assuming that we survive through these struggles, which is an unfortunate thing to say, but teen suicide is a real thing. I don't want to go too far off the beaten path with that, but I just, Wes, I know you went through some shit as a teenager. I just do you care to talk about that at all, as far as like trying to open a dialogue with your mom, or what avenues you would want teens today to take, or younger Wes to take?
I can definitely talk on that. First, I just want to make a comment. It came to me as both of you were talking why I think it is the way it is, why it's such a stigma to talk about mental health. I know I'm a little late to the party here, but I feel like it has something to do with like a notion of pragmatism, a notion of it's not practical to have feelings when you're part of the working class, when you're the proletariat. I'm going back to, we live in a society. And you can't take these mental health days. You do just have to suck it up, so on and so forth, if you are at the lower percentages. And I think that has permeated most of our society. Suck it up, buckaroo. We got work to do. And I think maybe that took over and is still, very prevalent now. That, just an aside, I wanted to get that thought out there because it came to me.
I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to add to that real quick. You bring up a good point. It's almost like people are saying like, oh, you don't have time to feel that way, or maybe like we suppress it ourselves. We're like, oh, I don't have time to feel that way or process that, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
As a teenager, my God, those were some of the darkest days of my life. I honestly, I had no problem expressing how I felt really, really loudly. I'm more of I get what I want, and that's not a good trait to have. So I don't recommend teenagers just go out there and wantonly take whatever the fuck they want. But my mindset was if I want something, and I still have impulsive behavior. If I want something, I fucking get it. And it obviously not $1 billion. Realistic things like I want something, I'm gonna go work for it. I'm gonna kick and scream to get it, whatever. As a teenager, that meant being loud and vocal about everything, and so people knew I had problems, and I didn't see the problems I had, but didn't really care about any stigma. It was more just like my impulsive behavior was going to get me what I wanted, if I needed it or not, or actually really wanted it or not. I don't know how that helps this conversation, but that's kind of sums up me as a teenager. So I guess I'm a bit of an outlier there. But as I became more quiet, as I became more reserved, once I realized that I was a complete asshole, then that's where the real, oh, I need to be pragmatic about this. I can't just express my feelings the way I want to all the time. I can't just get what I want. I need to, I need to put my head down and work and suppress these feelings like a real adult. And that's my real experience with that kind of stuff started at an older age. From a younger age, I was very well aware of all my issues because I went to like Children's Resource Center. It's a place in Wood County where like troubled youths go for help. I think they also double as like the juvenile jail, although I luckily never saw that side of it, even though I probably belonged there a few times. Honestly. But I knew from a young age I had like ADHD and complex disorders that were like borderline autistic, and I knew that actually I suppressed a lot of the autistic part. My brother used to tell me all the time, but I didn't really believe it until I realized, oh shit, yeah, no, that's real. But it's not even in the DSM anymore. It's called ODD, or obstinate defiance disorder. It's just, a comorbidity of being hyper active and not wanting to listen to people, and maybe being a little bit cyclothymia, basically ups and downs of your mood. I have a mood disorder, but I think that's enough of talking about my problems. But yeah, that's I hope I answered your question.
This is good insight. Definitely good insight. Lenny, any thoughts?
Wes, I think it's like ironic that you brought up ODD, because I think it still is in the DSM, because my son, when he was diagnosed with combination ADHD, they also diagnosed him with ODD as well. So I'm pretty sure it's still in the DSM.
Interesting. I've been told twice that it's no longer a diagnosis. Or maybe because I'm an adult now.
It may be like, yeah, you may have like phased out of like the age range for ODD. But I'm like 99% sure that's still in the DSM, or else I don't think they would have marked that as a diagnosis for his stuff. But while we're on the subject of caveats, one little caveat that I did have to the point I made earlier is that if you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents, like you don't have that kind of relationship, find somebody that you do trust that is an adult, because unfortunately, like, and this is like kind of the technology thing that I didn't want to harp on too much, but with social media, it's really easy to get caught in a feedback loop for young teenagers, young kids, that while they think it's help, it's not actually help. Like your friends, or I know there's like a lot of like Discord servers out there where like it's just a bunch of young people like trying to support each other. That's not enough. You need an adult adult intervention. Whether it be for medical purposes, or talking with somebody that's been through life. Find that with a parent, grandparent, one of your friends' parents, some like a teacher that you're close with, somebody that's an adult.
Somebody on the other side of that struggle, right?
Yeah.
On the other side of that timeline that can kind of pull you through and help you healthily process what you're feeling and going through.
Yeah, you're it's natural for kids to think their parents are stupid. I'd go so far as to say it's probably like an evolutionary thing to get like as like a way to like drive, and this is unfounded. I could be talking out of my ass, but if you think about it, right, if you think that like everybody around you is dumb, but like you put that into like prehistoric times or like early humans, so that like makes you go away from like your family group to like find like a new group of people from like let's say like another tribe or whatever, and now like there's like a much wider genetic diversity. I don't know, I may be talking out of my ass, but what I'm saying is that it's normal, and there's a reason why like you don't want to listen to your parents. And if you're not going to listen to your parents, that's fine, but find somebody to talk to that you trust.
And listen, there are plenty of people out there. I'm a great example. My therapist is the same age as me, which really helps with conversations and just building general with rapport and trust. But there are a lot of, and I don't want to be ageist, but there are a lot of younger mental health professionals out there. If you feel like you want someone, more closer to your age who kind of gets it, they have their life experiences, they're fresh out of school. Maybe they don't have the years of therapeutic experience, but they have the anecdotal experiences with what they've learned in their educational path, that can be a benefit to you.
I guess I have a comment based on what you're talking about. I think it's just important to find someone you're comfortable with overall. Like if an older woman is what you're looking for, you could be a younger guy and like you were raised by your mother and you're just like you feel comfortable talking to an older woman. That would be excellent. Find someone that you can talk to because they're there for you. If you can't talk, they're not going to help you very much. And I know we like to rag on different generations here, but science is developmental. It is built on the shoulders of the ones before us. There are boomers, there are people, Gen Xers and millennials. Every people of every generation are very capable of doing mental health work. And we didn't just come up with this out of nowhere. People have been working on this for centuries. A century probably not so much that we're building off of, centuries deep, but we didn't just come overnight. So like there are people from the previous generation, professors and researchers and people who really want to help you from other generations as well. And on the point about Lenny, with we think we're smarter than our parents, and that being maybe an evolutionary thing to find out groups or whatever. I really like that. I don't know if it's true either, but that sounds really plausible and excellent. But maybe
Makes a lot
also
of sense, doesn't it?
maybe also we think we're smarter than our parents, so we can generationally do better than them as well. I don't know. I've never really put thought into that, but after you said that, a couple conjectures popped into my head. I think that's all I have.
The thing that you made me just think of is, you talked about like finding someone that you bond well with or that you blend well with. For me, I think part of it is me being a mama's boy, but I have I have a really hard time talking to other males about mental health or my own mental health. And maybe it's my desire for an in-person type of friendship, that I look for someone who's like similar in my age and may or may not have similar experiences. But these are things that I just kind of uncovered as I developed my relationship with my mental health professional, that they went through some similar struggles and was diagnosed with ADHD late in life, and so we're both neurodivergent, and there's a lot of foundation there. But maybe other people, they want more of a parental figure that's not their parent. Some people, I always think of, you guys remember New Girl? You guys watch the show New Girl?
Brittany's literally watching it right now.
So where Nick bonds with the old Asian dude, and always goes and talks to the old Asian dude. I forget his name, but he never says a fucking word. And Nick is just talking to him the whole time. Maybe you just need something like that. There's a therapist out there for everyone. I think is what Wes was trying to say and what I'm expanding on.
Yeah, go find yourself a nice Asian dude to talk to.
Preferably one that doesn't talk back.
Right. In the park.
Holy shit, you're fucked up.
and the other thing I wanna touch on before we go to the break is make sure that your therapist, if you go down this path and you feel like this could help you, make sure that your therapist isn't just affirming everything that you say. Because that can be dangerous, right? Like, make sure that your therapist will challenge you and eventually, maybe not right at first, right? But eventually get to the point where they aren't afraid to call you out and say, hey, like, you really feel that way? Do you feel like that's okay to feel that? You know what I mean? Like, in that poking fun kind of way, where they just kind of get in your ear a little bit and they're just like, hey, like, you sure about that one?
Well, Kevin, maybe that works for you, but that might not work for everybody. But you're right. People should find a therapist that isn't just like you said, reaffirm everything they're saying.
If your therapist just affirms everything that you say, like, you're not doing any growth, right? Like, the point of therapy is to grow and better yourself.
Or alternatively, you're right and everybody else around you is fucked up. I'm joking.
That can be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break. Coming back from the break, we're going to talk about common myths and falsehoods of mental health. And I want to specifically talk about men's mental health. Not because I'm sexist, but because I'm a guy. So there's that. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Life Midwest podcast. On the other side of the break, get your hosts Kevin Palmer, Wes Wesley Snipes, and Lenny Wells. Hey, if you're looking for ways to support us, we do have a PayPal that's live at paypal.me/thelifemidwest. You can also check us out at thelifemidwest.com. You can also check out our social media pages on all major social media platforms, and you guessed it, thelifemidwest.com. Going to interact with our social media manager, Lenny, there, the underloved millennial. Bring him some love. Bring out your love. Ding. There's your Monty Python reference for the year. Hey, we also have an email that you can reach out to us at for support at thelifemidwest.com. Folks, there's another section of mental health that I want to talk about today, but before we get to there, I want to talk a little bit, just very quickly, I want to bust some common myths and falsehoods of mental health. The first one is that those who have mental health needs are supposedly, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, give me a nod if you knew this or have heard this before or not, are more likely to be violent or cause crime.
I have heard this, yes.
Okay. So in actuality, it is less, what that is referring to, maybe not necessarily the school shootings and things like that, maybe in more broader spectrum, but even with that, less than 0.1% of our population, whether they've been diagnosed or not, has actually an antisocial disorder that would result in crime of any level. The next one is people fake illnesses for dangerous or controlled substances. I'm sure we've all heard this one before, especially if you take Adderall. You probably feel like a fucking criminal when you go to the pharmacy. You get weird looks. You get little, can I see your ID? Shit like that. Turns out that more than likely these people do so for their own access to the drugs, and they aren't dealers themselves. So they're not trying to get the drugs to sell it to other people or deal out. It's more than likely, statistically, more than likely that they will themselves just be committing their own crime on their own. I don't know if that actually makes it better or not, but it's what I found on the internet. So And then, the last one that we probably hear all the time is just go outside, snap out of it, learn to live with it. And while at some level these can be solutions, they aren't whole solutions. For example, going outside can help with vitamin D deficiencies, which was linked to a study in depression symptoms. However, snapping out of it itself requires usually an entire rewire of the brain and thinking patterns. And that's not happening without some intense therapy and other lifestyle changes. So the whole just go outside, it's like a tip of the iceberg when it comes to a solution. It's not going to be a fix all. Lastly, learning to live with it is probably the worst thing that you can do. I would invite Lenny to talk about his struggles with ADHD prior to being diagnosed and his quality of life post diagnosis, or anyone else who's been diagnosed late in life who have had to kind of go through this motions and face, not through any fault of their parents or their upbringing. It's just matter of fact circumstance. They went through life. They had these struggles. Thought everyone had these struggles. And then all of a sudden came out and they're like, oh, nope, this isn't normal. Here's some medication and some therapy with how to, to help you kind of, deal with that. And there's nothing wrong with having to deal with that or learning to deal with that. I think of the people who have I'm making up words. I'm thinking of people who have innate amounts of anxiety who just learn to live with it, and they just feel like they have to push through, and they don't want to use the resources that are out there, whether that's therapy or medication or just leaning on somebody a little bit. It's just kind of crazy to think about. Lenny, you don't have to speak on this too much if you don't want to, but I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk about, pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis, your quality of life.
Well, to start off, it is the fault of my parents, because when I before I was officially diagnosed, and I was talking to my buddy Jake, who you guys may remember from the My Friend Jake episode. He was diagnosed with ADHD really early in life. I believe he was still in grade school, and so I had been talking to him about it and like some of the things I was experiencing, and he's like, yeah, you should probably go see a doctor about that, And so I talked to my parents about it once before I had got diagnosed, and they're like, well, no, you were never like, because like I asked the question, like, had any of my teachers or, like the school counselors like suggest that I'd be seen or whatever, you know how that goes, like that typical like 90s like throw the pill at everything or whatever. I just asked if that had ever happened. They told me no, and then afterwards I talked to my parents about it, and I was like, look, like this is something that I've been dealing with, and they're like, well, and I think it was, I don't know if it was my stepdad or my mom that had said this, but one of them said essentially, well, we knew that you like probably were like that, but we just figured that you were so smart that it just didn't affect you. It was something you could just it wasn't gonna affect your life that much, and it very much did. So, I just the forgetfulness, honestly, is like just that like one thing alone has caused me so much more grief in life than like I ever really actually needed to go through it. And like even now that like I'm medicated, it's not exactly like gone away, right? But it's at a much lesser degree. Like if I'm in the middle of work and I put down like a pair of pliers or like my like it's my screwdriver, I will still like go back to reach for it and reach in the wrong place, then have to do like a quick like okay, and there it is, right? And I still have that like a little bit of panic, like I just fucking lost it. How did I just lose it? It was literally just in my hands. But when I'm not medicated, that it's or when I'm not using my medication, it's so much worse. It'll be like hours and hours before I even think about something like that again. Anyways, you kind of touched on it when you said you just think everybody lives like this, but it's so you think about all the things that could have been, You know, I always did, at least as far as like school went. I did really well, and I know that I could have done better. Um, if it wasn't for, missing that diagnosis and not being medicated. Um, because I could do zero homework and pass a test with flying colors and be done before literally anybody else was. It was that easy. Um, but it didn't really help me learn. Um, so when I got to started taking college courses, it was so, and there's something to be said for about taking those courses later in life with a lot of um war trauma under my belt as well. But like, it was such a different experience, because the gap between college and high school are there. It's such a large gap, and the way you're expected to be able to learn that high schools are supposed to set you up for, I was not prepared for at all. Because I didn't learn to learn correctly. Because again, I went through my entire life with combination ADHD and not being treated for it. So that really set me behind when I was at that point in my life where I was trying to go through school again.
And I want to stress that everyone has different experiences with ADHD, right? Like, for example, I have other cognitive things that I deal with and that I work through, and I was the exact opposite of Lenny in school. I felt stupid. I couldn't focus. I couldn't retain information, and to your point of how it didn't really set me up for success, I don't feel like it did, because college is so different. And I mean that in the aspect of right now, like, I have a 3.9 GPA. Do you picture me having a 3.9 GPA in high school, either of you?
I think that you had the potential for it.
But do you think I did?
No, I know you didn't.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, pre and post diagnosis, like, it's very, very interesting. So, folks, before we close out the show, there's another section that I just kind of want to give each of the guys a little bit to ramble about here. We were going to make this a separate episode, and we kind of debated on it, and we were actually just going to tie it in with mental health, and that is men's mental health. As Lenny loves to say, we live in a society where men are supposed to be the rock in their family. Did I do a good job with that, Lenny? Was that all right?
It was very serviceable.
Okay, thank you. They're strong, they provide shelter, and are hardly moved by exterior forces, right? I'm talking about rocks. I like rocks. I like rocks. But in that society where feminism is a roaring and passionate movement, and we almost expect women to feel, why can't men? Or at least why men feel like they can't. So if you're a guy and you're struggling with mental health, I feel like it's and again, I want to dance a very careful line here. I'm not saying it's more difficult for men. I'm not saying it's harder for men. I'm just saying men have their own unique struggles with this. And as men, I just want to quickly give the floor to Lenny and Wes to kind of talk about what they think it lies within this, or could be either the problem or solution, or maybe they just want to talk about it. So, Wes, take it away, bud.
As a man, it's okay to feel things. I was lucky enough to grow up with my mama. She was the rock in my life and taught me everything that I know. Other than like what I learned in school, right? Like life lessons is what she taught me. And one of those is just she wants me to be happy. And if that means I have emotions and I have feelings, then I have emotions and I have feelings. I've been lucky enough to be instilled with those beliefs. So I would just like to pass that on to anyone else who's struggling. It's okay to have feelings and emotions and to cry and to work through your feelings out loud as a man. it even, you know, if your whole life you've thought other than that, it's okay. Um, Being a man does not mean you're, oh, I'm a man. I'm a manly man. They don't cry. I'm a man. I don't know if that explains shit, but yeah, that's not what being a man is. I think being a man is just something you're assigned at. That's something you decide you are. That's something you're assigned at birth with. That's just you can't control that. You're a man if you're a man. You don't have to try to be a man, if that makes sense.
Well said. Well said, man.
Thanks,
Lenny?
man.
I I actually disagree with you, Wes. I don't think that you just are assigned, being a man at birth. Sure you could be assigned gender at birth, but I think what people define as manhood, especially when it comes, internally, is something that's really subjective and deeply personal, and it's molded by what you see around you and what your experiences are. For example, like part of my definition of what it means to be a man is someone is kind of like what we talked about as being sort of a problem. More as Kevin got into, is that somebody is that yes, provides for their family, but more that less I mean that in less of a like monetary way, or I don't know, physical way, as being the breadwinner, or paying the bills and things like that. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's just something that everyone's expected to do, regardless of if you're a man or not. But so to me, being a man is being a good partner. And I've not always been the best at that, but I'm trying to be better every day. But also, more than that, is being a good father. I've had some really good father figures in my life. I've had some really shitty ones. So I unfortunately had to learn, as I'm sure a lot of people had, what it means to be a really shitty man really early in life, and have done my best to resolve to not do that. As far as what it means for men's mental health, I experienced a lot of machismo when it came to the military. That's a culture that's slowly becoming more and more accepting of mental health, and talking about mental health, and acknowledging that it exists. It's a lot farther behind than maybe the mainstream culture is in the US, but it's getting there. And I think that we're, along with mental health more generally, I think that we're starting to see a lot of those, again, generational norms about men's mental health starting to break down, and not be as taboo. But I don't know that I would particularly say that there needs to be a difference between men's mental health and mental health more generally, because I think that as mental health becomes more normalized, that what's the word I'm looking for? That archetype of what a man is meant to be, and the way men approach and treat mental health will also change, and hopefully it won't be something that we need to ultimately have a large focus on.
Well said. And I think one of the best ways that you can do that is to just continue having conversations going forward.
Well, I think Wes has something to say too.
I just want to kind of, I guess, redact what I said about like being assigned a man or whatever. I agree with you, Lenny, that it's much more complex than that, and I don't for a minute believe that you pop out the womb with a wiener and you're a man. But also, while men's mental health is important, just as women's mental health is, I don't technically identify as a man. I mean, I do have a penis, I think, and that makes me what society would call a man, but I'm just a human. And at the end of the day, I don't look at like just strictly men on TV and idolize them. Like, I want to be like that. I see a lot of strong women, and I idolize those aspects as well. And I think of myself as a human. And as Lenny was saying, I hope we do converge into just someday all mental health is created equally and we are all just humans.
Nicely done, boys. Nicely done. Hey, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. It's time for shout outs. Wes, what do you got for us this week, buddy?
Shout out to mental health workers. You're literally doing the God's work. Shout out to both of you. Great discussion this week. Shout out to mothers, specifically my mother, for letting me know that it doesn't matter if I'm a man, as long, just be happy. And if that means having emotions, then have emotions. Shout out to media, shows, television, YouTube channels, radio shows, things that help with mental health. As it proliferates, as people realize it's okay to have feelings, I think society is going to benefit overall. That's all I have this week.
Cool. Lenny?
So I actually I have a very special first shout out. I'm sure that they won't see this, but I want to shout out internet dad Hank Green. I don't know if you guys have seen but he's came out with his leukemia. No, sorry. He came out with his cancer diagnosis. Lymphoma. Thank you. Came out with his lymphoma diagnosis this week. And luckily it seems to be one of the more treatable and quote unquote easier cancers, so to speak. But still, I want to shout him out, and I hope everything goes well with that. Next, I want to shout out my beautiful wife Brittany, who has been someone in my life that has been kicking me in the pants to deal with my mental health, even when I didn't want to. So thank you. And shout out. I'll just echo Wes's shout out for everyone that's working in mental health. God, we need you. We need y'all so much. So, Kevin?
Want to shout out Ashley and her always being nurturing and encouraging towards mental health, and never shying away from conversation. Never shying away from that healthy nudge towards mental health, and being open to it. And I just we talked briefly today about being a man and all that, and it's just I've never been with someone who is so open to vulnerability. And encourages that vulnerability and that authenticity, and just makes me feel like it's okay to be me, and is okay with me being me. And I just really love her. I just really love her and appreciate her for that. Want to also shout out mental health workers, including my own therapist and my therapist's therapist, and so on and so forth up that food chain. You guys are the real ones, as we said. Want to give a shout out to Nintendo. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out a couple weeks ago. I've been enjoying that. I got this for pre-ordering it, so very excited about that. Hey folks, leave us a review, leave us a comment, interact with us on social media. What do you think of this week's episode? Or do you have a favorite moment from the first 99 episodes that you've been too shy to hit the enter key on? Lenny's waiting to hear from you on that. So until then, folks, next month is going to be is Pride Month. We're going to be doing some cool things around that. We're also going to be talking about talking. There's that fucking accent sneaking in there again. We're going to be talking about it's graduating season for the youngsters, and the things that we wish we would have told ourselves at younger ages, or at least heeded a little bit more seriously. I think that'll be a fun conversation for us too. But yeah, feel free to hang out with us next Saturday and every Saturday here on the Life Midwest podcast. Take care. Call your mom. Thanks to my mom for being my mom. Tell someone you love them. Lenny's going to do that here in a second. And we'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Deuces.
Bye, love you, babes. Kevin, you spoiled it. You ruined it.
I ruined it.
It's been ruined.
Oh, I'm so tired. I'll message you guys in the morning. I got work. I got works in the morning.
Works.
Yeah, me too. Fuckers.
Love you guys. Good talk today.
Live
Later,
well,
dude.
brothers.
What?
Live well, brothers.
Oh, okay, brother. Right on, brother. America.
My brother in Christ.
Comrade.
All right. Good night, y'all.
Adios.
Later, fellas.